Hello and welcome to the second edition, the second week of Sunday Morning Samurai Movie Marathon. This week I was hoping to discuss, and I'm going to discuss, and further kind of expound upon what I talked about last week, specifically the issue of are we or aren't we our brother's keepers? And I had hoped to get more in depth last week, but due to time constraints, I really wasn't able to. And the issue for me in regards to are we or aren't we our brother's keepers really comes down to a question of economics. Morality to me, as I discussed last week, really isn't an issue of good or bad. It's an issue of situation and context and working within one's own personal narrative. So I think a lot of the times, or at least most of the time, when people commit acts which we deem, or society deems, rightly or unrightly, to be immoral acts, the situation dictates that, at least in some of those instances, that we have to incarcerate those people who commit those acts, because we can't have rapists and murderers and pedophiles and people who refuse to live by the structure that our society has set up walking the streets. It gets into a public safety and a kind of mass versus individual situation. And the problem for me in how we approach that is, as I discussed last week, that we assume that people who engage in those activities engage in them because they're not moral people. I think by and large, people engage in a lot of quote-unquote immoral activities due more so to the fact that their own personal narrative at that point gives them no other choice. And I think if we allocate the resources for early education and even things as simple as neonatal care, open, free access to and equal access to things like neonatal care, early education, pre-K, general economic uplifting. I mean, when you, for as long as you know, have been at the bottom of the barrel, you get to a point where you'll do anything to survive. And I think if we kind of lift the general economics of the citizens of this country and of any country, as well as things like early education, neonatal care, pre-K, and equal access for the populace, things like subsidized daycare, things like just generally good education within the schools, and equally good education, so that some kid growing up in a poorer part of the country, be it a poor rural area or a poor urban area, has access to the same education as someone growing up in an upper middle class area. I think we'll see, and the numbers suggest that we'll see, crime rates go down. And the point ultimately is we either pay for this in the present tense or we pay for it in the future tense. And it's a lot cheaper to educate someone K through 12 from birth to 18 than it is to incarcerate them from 18 till the day they die. And we need prisons, we need police, we need those things because some people, for one reason or another, aren't going to obey the law. But the vast majority of the people, in my experience, who break the law not because they're bad, immoral, evil people, but because their own personal narrative is dictating it. They get to a point where that becomes their only option. Be it to steal, be it to rob, be it to do any of those things. And from an economic standpoint, which to me is really the only objective way to look at it, we either take care of our brother now or we take care of them later. Everything that we do has consequences, not just those who commit the crimes, but the society at large who creates such a degree of inequity that those crimes become inevitable. They become a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy, which is to say that if you put people in a situation where their only option is to beg, borrow, and steal, they're going to beg, borrow, and steal. And do a lot worse than that as well.